Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
Well, good morning, one and all. It is 8:07 a.m. on News Talk 105.9 WMAL. We are making sense of the news. Listen, it's a banner day here on O'Connor Company. I'm Andrew Langer. She's Bethany Mandel. Hello, Bethany.
Good morning. Am I part of the one and all?
100%. And, you know, it's one of those things where it's not just the first day of autumn today, or as the rest of us call it, fall. But it is also the starting of the Jewish New Year tonight, is it not?
Shana Tova, everyone. Happy New Year.
Shana Tova, everybody. Happy New Year as well. We got all kinds of stuff coming up on the show today. We're going to be we're going to be talking quite a bit about the Charlie Kirk Memorial, but we're also going to be talking about Charlie Sheen. Apparently wanting to talk about getting Jimmy Kimmel's time slot, and some announcements being made today on Tylenol policy with the Department of Health and Human Services, the FDA, et cetera. So we're going to want to talk about that. In any case, listen, yesterday was this very heartening memorial service. Bethany and I really talked about it quite a bit in the first hour, but felt it important to also talk about it today. And I mentioned that one of my favorite moments in the memorial service, and it was a celebration. You know, I think it's so vital. I mean, obviously, we are all mourning the tragic death of Charlie Kirk, struck down, not even in the prime of his life, but as the prime of his life was just starting. But it was a celebration and lots of discussion. And my favorite moment, I think, was this one. Larry Arnn, the president of Hillsdale, who's been in the movement and is a thought leader, has been a thought leader in the conservative movement for a very long time. He had this to say. Let's go ahead and play cut number 15.
We had the pastor. I'm the school teacher. I have one short story to tell you about Charlie Kirk, my friend. He became a friend of mine because I interrogated him one time. 19-year-olds are my specialty. I asked him some questions he couldn't answer. And he was already becoming famous. And I noticed his reaction. He said, "What should I do?" And I said, "Well, you have to suffer. If you want to grow, you have to suffer. Hard to learn. Into the night. Crack of dawn in the morning. Start with the Bible. Read the classics. Study the founding of America. In those places, you will find that there's a ladder that reaches up toward God. And at the bottom of it is the ordinary good things that are around us everywhere. If we can call them by their names, they have being. And the beings of the good things are figments of God." You will find that article in Aristotle. You will find it in the Bible. You will find it in Madison and Jefferson. "How do I learn that?" he said. And I said, "You have to suffer. You have to study. You have to think." I thought I'd never hear from him again. Within a month, he got hold of my cell phone number and he texted me a copy of a certificate of completion of a Hillsdale College online course. He would go on to do that 31 times. I keep a list in my head of the 6 or 8 young people, and I'm very privileged I get to know many inspiring young people who are the best I ever saw. Charlie is the only one who was never a full-time student at Hillsdale College who was on that list. We will miss him dearly.
You know, it's interesting. I think Charlie was reaching out to a lot of people when he was 19. I went back and looked, and as I said, I didn't know him well. I'd only met him a handful of times, but I went through and he had sent me a Facebook friend request when he was 19, which I think there was a lot of that going on. But Bethany, I mean, you can see why that appealed to me, right? I mean, that's a testament, isn't it?
I have always hated the young spring kids who come up through the conservative movement. I've always found them to be talentless and unintelligent and really just a stain on the movement, and many of them go on to, do other things.
Bethany, what I always appreciate is
No.
you're always so diplomatic in what you say, and you're always trying. No,
Let me finish. I never even thought about Charlie in that way. I didn't put him in one of those upstart young, because he didn't play on his youth. He didn't make it part of his shtick.
Right.
He knew that he had a lot to learn, and he put his nose to the grindstone, and he learned and he worked. And that is why he existed always in a separate bucket for me. Yeah. I knew he was super young. I didn't realize he was 31. But I never thought of him as this kid, because he didn't play that up. That wasn't part of his appeal.
I don't know if Heather has this rule, producer Heather has this rule. I know that when I go to places like CPAC, I have a standard rule of not putting on any young people, any kids on the show, because generally they're being prompted by their parents, and it never goes well. No kids, and nobody with shtick, because that's an issue. One of my other favorite presentations yesterday was Marco Rubio. And I do enjoy. I'm a sucker for a good speech. I do enjoy listening to Marco Rubio speak. Let's play cut number 16.
Look, I think he had a tremendous impact on young Americans in general. I think he had a very special and direct impact on young men in this country. That's one of the greatest developments I've seen. It's been very positive. I think we remember him for that. I think we remember him for constantly saying, you want to live a productive life, get married, start a family, love your country. These are powerful messages. But I hope many who are watching, I imagine there are people watching here tonight that didn't know much about Charlie Kirk until 11 days ago. Maybe they were disengaged from politics. Maybe they were partially engaged. I hope one of the things they take from this is that the movement Charlie Kirk led and started and gave fuel to was about politics, but not only about politics. It was deeper. It was broader. And I would say that, taking the liberty, but I'm confident he would agree, one of the things he wants us to take away from this, from all of this, is the following. His deep belief that we were all created, every single one of us, before the beginning of time, by the hands of the God of the universe.
It's a situation in which Charlie Kirk was demonstrating how you could be an actual man without being an a-hole, right? I mean, which is another problem, another streak amongst so-called conservatives, where you have these guys who think that they need to be some kind of a misogynistic. Anyway, there are phrases that I could use that I can't use on the air here, but to be mature and thoughtful and dedicated to God and dedicated to family, that's what being a man is. Listen, everything I ever needed to know about life I learned from The Godfather, right? You can start by acting like a man, right? You spend time with your family, because a man who doesn't spend time with his family can never truly be a man. I'm sorry, Bethany, go ahead.
No, I mean, one other thing I really loved about Marco's speech, but also Vice President J.D. Vance's speech, was, and J.D. Vance said it in his speech, I have never talked about Jesus as I have as much as I have the last 2 weeks. And the more I think we hear from our leaders who are professing their faith, the better. I think that it's a good look, and it was really nice to hear them honor Charlie in that way by being a witness to their faith.
I want to talk about that, because that's something that I came away from also from the event that I went to in Williamsburg afterwards, after watching the Charlie Kirk event. There was a vigil down there, and I texted into our group chat last night about that issue, about faith. We will continue in just a moment, but first, it is 8:15 a.m.
WMAL, making sense of the news, live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
We talk about this issue of faith. Let me start here. Let's open this up with cut number 18. Here's Marco Rubio talking about his history. Let's go ahead.
An all-powerful God who loved us and created us for the purpose of living with him in eternity. But then sin entered the world and separated us from our Creator. And so God took on the form of a man and came down and lived among us. And he suffered like men. And he died like a man. But on the third day, he rose unlike any mortal man. And to prove any doubters wrong, he ate with his disciples so they could see, and they touched his wounds. He didn't rise as a ghost or as a spirit, but as flesh. And then he rose to the heaven, but he promised he would return. And he will. And when he returns, because he took on that death, because he carried that cross, we were freed from the sin that separated us from him. And when he returns, there will be a new heaven and a new earth, and we will all be together, and we are going to have a great reunion there again with Charlie and all the people we love. Thank you, and God bless you.
I mean, it really was a powerful end to his remarks. And Bethany, I went on to this event in Williamsburg yesterday, a vigil for Charlie Kirk put on by someone I'd never met before in politics or activism, and I was struck by the professions of faith that were there. And you and I were both involved in the Tea Party movement, back years ago, and there was almost there. Obviously, there were you would have benedictions that were given or what have you, but there was almost a conscientious effort to not engage in issues of faith in terms of that movement. And I wondered yesterday as I was watching the memorial service, as I was watching this vigil afterwards, if there is a certain durability that comes in, or if something else has changed to bring this in. I know you had some very strong thoughts about this. What were your thoughts here?
So you had asked me via text, like, sort of how did I feel as a Jew watching all of this, and I went to the Kennedy Center memorial as well. Again, so packed that there were more people outside who couldn't get in than inside, and I just, as a Jew, I'm really glad to see that more Americans are finding God and finding faith, and the more God, the better, and all of the cultural sort of downstream effects of that faith, more family formation, more marriage, lawfulness instead of lawlessness. There is not a downside to God and, by extension, Jesus. And I was so glad to see that this is hopefully looking like it's going to be a revival for faith in America, because it's long past time Americans start going back to church.
It's one of those things where I'm about to give a speech over on the Eastern Shore next week on servant leadership. It's become a big theme in the work that I'm doing. The idea of putting others in front of yourself. And it gets into something that has been very powerful for me, which is this idea that I am not the main character in my life story, right? You are not the main character in your life story. If you put God as the main character in your life story, you live a very different life. And I think that's part of why so many people flocked to Charlie Kirk and why so many people were at this memorial service yesterday, that he was living a life where he was not the center of attention, which, by the way, also gets into the whole thing with, young kids who get involved in politics, and one of the great problems that we have in that regard. And something I take great pause in this clip from Erica Kirk, which again was just such a powerful point in this event. Let's go ahead and play cut number 19, Michael.
To look directly at my husband's murdered body. I saw the wound that ended his life. I felt everything you would expect to feel. I felt shock. I felt horror. And a level of heartache that I didn't even know existed. But there was something else too. Even in death, I could see the man that I love. I saw the one single gray hair on the side of his head, which I never told him about. Now he knows. Sorry, baby, I'm telling you now, but never told him. Didn't want to. I also saw this. I also saw on his lips the faintest smile, And that told me something important. It revealed to me a great mercy from God in this tragedy. When I saw that, it told me Charlie didn't suffer. Even the doctor told me it was something so instant that even if Charlie had been shot in the operating room itself, nothing could have been done. There was no pain. There was no fear, no agony. One moment, Charlie was doing what he loved, arguing and debating on campus, fighting for the gospel and truth in front of a big crowd. And then he blinked. He blinked and saw his Savior in paradise.
Wow. We've got so much more to get to. I'm overwhelmed by that. It's 8:24 on WMAL. So listen, we may talk about Charlie Sheen, we may talk about Tylenol, but what I can tell you is we are definitely going to continue to talk about the Charlie Kirk Memorial. We haven't even touched on what the president had to say, some of the other high points here, and what was an incredibly moving memorial service to Charlie Kirk. I'm Andrew Langer. That's Bethany Mandel. It is 8:30 on WMAL.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. WMAL. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
You know, it is 8:37 on News Talk 105.9 WMAL. We are making sense of the news. I'm Andrew Langer in for Larry today, alongside Bethany Mandel, who's in for Julie. You know, we're continuing to talk about the Charlie Kirk Memorial, and one of the other moving moments, I mean, we're going to talk about the forgiveness thing in a moment, but this just got me. You know, we're always striving to do better. I know I'm always striving to do better in my relationships. Here is cut number 21. Erica Kirk talking about the secret of her marriage to Charlie. Let's play cut 21.
Someone once asked me how Charlie and I, how we kept our marriage so strong when he was busy traveling. And our little secret, it was love notes. Every Saturday, Charlie wrote one for me, and he never missed a Saturday. And in every single one of them, he'd tell me what his highlight was for the week, how grateful he was for me and our babies. And always at the end, he would always end it with asking the most beautiful question. He'd always end it by asking, please let me know how I can better serve you as a husband.
I mean, it really is amazing, Bethany, this idea of serving others and putting others above yourself. Your thoughts here?
I thought that, I'm trying to decide if I want to be charitable or not, and I think I'm not.
Okay.
There's a lot of bad men in the conservative movement. There's a lot of people who talk out of both sides of their mouth, who say, oh, the importance of family, the importance of... And we all know the rumors. We all know that they're cheating. We know all the things. Charlie, I never once heard a rumor, and I hear all the rumors. He was a fundamentally decent man, and that is why he was targeted by an assassin's bullet, because he was so effective, because he meant what he said and he walked the walk.
Right.
And I see a lot of these snake oil salesmen on the right, and I think, golly, we really needed Charlie, because there's not many men in the conservative movement like Charlie who really believed what they said, and he was unique, and it's a real loss. But I really appreciated that in life and now in death, the people eulogizing him talked so much about how he prioritized his family and his marriage and how he lionized it. One thing that I loved about her remarks also was that it was kind of a rebuke on the trad movement.
Yes.
She talked a lot about, you serve your husband, but you're not a slave. And she's saying this to men and women because a lot of the sort of trad influencers on the right have been really trafficking in some toxic messaging when it comes to marriage. And she said it very plainly. I was there to make my husband's life easier and to serve him and to love him, but I was not his slave. And she is, smart and intelligent and driven, and she's going to take over Turning Point USA, and it's going to be, amazing, and she's going to bring it to new heights on the wings of all the work that Charlie did. But this sort of equal, beautiful, respectful, loving marriage that they modeled, I think, is one that Americans should really take notice of.
Right. It gets to this idea of you are serving each other. Here is what she had to say. Let's play cut 22.
To all the men watching around the world, accept Charlie's challenge and embrace true manhood. Be strong and courageous for your families. Love your wives and lead them. Love your children and protect them. Be the spiritual head of your home. But please be a leader worth following. Your wife is not your servant. Your wife is not your employee. Your wife is not your slave. She is your helper. You are not rivals. You are one flesh working together for the glory of God.
And what I appreciate about that is that it's also not just about the toxic nature of the trad wife movement, but also about pushing back against the misinterpretation of what it means to be in these kinds of relationships that are perpetuated on the part of the left, right? The women who, again, get dressed up, the women and the men who dress up as handmaids from The Handmaid's Tale to go out on the mall. This is an underscoring of what she meant. And listen, I want to be really clear. I fall short. I fall short all the time. This is a challenge that I take seriously. Be a leader worth following. That is heady stuff. And I know we're running short here, but I do want to play this because I think it's important. You talk about her heart. This was the capstone of her message, Erica Kirk's message. Let's play cut 23.
My husband, Charlie, he wanted to save young men just like the one who took his life. That young man, on the cross, our Savior said, Father, forgive them, for they not know what they do. That young man, I forgive him.
We have so much more to get to. It's 8:44 here on WMAL.
Mark Levin, weekdays 6 till 9 on 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news.
So, Bethany, we had the president spoke yesterday, which was a big deal, obviously, and we had the moment of him with Charlie Kirk. We're going to get to that in a second. But here is the essence of the president's. The president spoke for quite a bit, by the way. But here, let's play cut 25, Michael.
Every single American should take a long, hard look at the twisted soul and dark spirit of anyone who would want to kill a young man as good as Charlie. To kill anybody, but to kill a man like this, he didn't deserve this. He didn't deserve this. Our country didn't deserve this. And anyone who would make excuses for it are just out of their mind. Charlie's murder was not just an attack on one man or one movement. It was an attack on our entire nation. That was a horrible attack on the United States of America. It was an assault on our most sacred liberties and God-given rights. The gun was pointed at him, but the bullet was aimed at all of us. That bullet was aimed at every one of us. Indeed, Charlie was killed for expressing the very ideas that virtually everyone in this arena and most other places throughout our country deeply believed in. But the assassin failed in his quest because Charlie's message has not been silenced. It now is bigger and better and stronger than ever before, and it's not even close.
You know, they talked about the role that Charlie Kirk played in Trump's election, especially in 2024. There was a great deal of skepticism as to what he was going to be able to accomplish in 2016. So there was a lot of respect there, wasn't there, Bethany?
Yeah, I mean, there was, I think that the gap in his presidency, the fact that he's 45 and 47, was a net positive for the president because he could really sort of go back to the drawing board and figure out who he wanted to be and what he wanted to do.
Right.
And a lot of the credit for him becoming 47 is on the shoulders of Charlie Kirk. And I thought that it was really, I find a lot of what he says, including last night, to have some real narcissistic tinges to it in a way that I find unpalatable.
Yeah.
But I really give him credit for the fact that he gave credit where it was due to Charlie, and he did it in life also.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. Real quick, Charlie Kirk did have a wish that came true yesterday regarding the president and Elon Musk. Let's play cut number 27.
I think Elon and Trump will reconcile.
And certainly the president spoke about this yesterday. Let's play cut 26.
You and Elon back together. Is that true?
Well, Elon came over and said hello. No, it's nothing to do with that. I thought it was nice. He came over, we had a little conversation. We had a very good relationship, but it was nice that he came over. Dana White was there, the great Dana White.
Yeah, and we got more to get to. We'll in a moment. It's 8:53 here on WMAL.